That's nice. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our January 2025. Can you believe it? Oh my gosh. Our book club discussion. We are so excited for our book club discussion tonight. But first, I want to say we hit 36,000 members last night. So, welcome any new members and welcome our members that have been with us from the beginning. So, we're so glad that you're here with us live. I'm Lisa Harrison, and I'm here with my co host, Brenda. And we
Mhm.
are super excited to discuss this masterpiece, P.S. I Hate You, with Lauren Connolly. So, without further ado, Brenda, would you like to introduce our special guest?
Would love to, and I cannot wait to talk about this book. There was a lot going on in there.
I'm so
So,
excited.
but welcome tonight to Lauren Connolly. She is an award-winning author of contemporary and paranormal romance stories, which we'll talk about a little bit later. She's lived among mountains, next to lakes, and in imaginary worlds. Lauren can never seem to stay in one place for too long, but trust that wherever she's residing, there's a dog who thinks he's a troll, twin cats hiding in the couch, and bookshelves bursting with stories written by the author she loves. Welcome, Lauren, to talk tonight about P.S. I Hate You. We're so
Yay!
glad to have you here.
Hello.
Yay!
Hi,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Thank you both for having me. I'm so excited to be meeting with Friends of Fiction to talk about my book. I've already gotten some love online from your group, so
Oh,
this is
yay.
really great.
Wonderful. Well, there's more to come.
Oh, yeah. We've got a lot of, there's so much love for this book. It's P.S. I love you, Lauren Connolly. That's it.
Thank you.
But I know we're here. We're gonna dive into P.S. I hate you. But I wanted to make sure for all the new Lauren Connolly fans that they may not know that besides this book, you have like 25 other books. And it just blows me away. I'm so impressed by that. And you go from contemporary romance to you've got some witchy books, which is right up my alley. And I have to mention the Holding a Witch for my witchy friends. That one you guys want to get. It's the first in the series. But so for those who haven't read or dived into any of your other books, what would you recommend for a new Lauren Connolly fan to start?
So I would say that something to keep in mind about my books is even the ones that are in series, they're all standalones. So if you happen to read the blurb on the back of a book, but then you see that it's second in a series, it'll still be a standalone romance. Um, but if
Wow.
you are a fan of contemporary romance, I have a rescue animal series. The first one is called Rescue Me, and that's like reformed bad boy and good girl. And
Ah,
she starts over her life by adopting a dog. So for all the animal lovers out there, that's a really good like kind of rom-com series. And if you like more magical stuff, I have Fire Magic and Ice Cream is a that's another kind of lighthearted rom-com with she's got some fire powers, but she falls in love with an ice cream shop owner. So, there's
love it.
things get a little messy there. Um, and then I've got a small town cozy mythical creature series called Folkhaven, and that's just kind of like a fun continuous one. And since I live in Georgia, that's set in Georgia. So yeah, I kind of go across
Yay.
the spectrum, and any of those, and they all kind of have my same voice and humor and everything. So I think no matter what you'd read, you still feel like it's a Lauren Connolly book. But yeah, any one of those.
Yay. Thank you for sharing that. I was like, we want to make sure our members are aware that there are plenty of options. Um, so speaking of over 25 books, I was lucky enough to attend your launch party in Atlanta for PS I Hate You, and it was amazing. It was so much fun. But one of the key takeaways for me that just honestly blew me away was how you shared your path to publication. Um, I was so inspired by you because you did everything, you did it your way and what was best for you. And you did different avenues from small press to self publishing and now traditionally published. Can you speak to that and share to some of the writers in our group your path to publication?
Sure, yeah. So when I was in college and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, I definitely had the dream of being a novelist. But I think at that point in time, even in the academic realm, there was kind of this mindset of you can't be a full-time novelist. That's like a side gig that people have. And so I got a degree in professional writing that was very kind of technical writing focused with like a creative writing minor. And then I went on to get my master's in library science, and I worked in libraries for a few years and then did my writing on the side. But I came to find out, yes, I love libraries. And you'll
We
definitely
love
see the little
librarians.
librarian
Yes.
heroines in my book. Um, but uh, I came to find out, like doing more research in the writing world, that you can be a full-time novelist as long as you put in the work and you treat being a novelist like a job, which some writers, they don't want to apply job pressure to their writing, which is completely understandable. There are definitely days when I wish I didn't have to treat it like a job, but I was able to find a balance between joy in the writing and also treating it as a profession. But so when I finished the first book that I felt confident in, because I had multiple books I finished that I was like, no one needs to see those. Let's just be happy that we got the word count and then tuck them into a dark drawer. But so once I finished, um, my first book that I really liked, I there were a lot of people who were doing really great things in the self-publish world, and so I decided, let me try my hand at that. And so I did. I self-published my first book. It's a college romance about a college student who needs a kidney donation because he's going through renal failure and his kidney donor. And so that um, was very instructional in like how to put a book out in the world, but performance wise, it didn't do too great, which is completely understandable. I didn't really know much about marketing. It was really more of an experimental thing, but it was great because I got to just, figure things out. And as I continued writing more, I on social media, there was an open call from a small publisher for submissions, which, yeah, I would highly recommend like following the publishers that you like on one of their social media platforms, because there's a lot of publishers, even big five publishers, that will have open calls for submissions sometimes. And how it
Hmm.
worked for me was I got a offer from a small publisher, and before accepting it, I said, hey, can I take a little bit of time to see if I can find an agent to represent me for this? And so previously to submitting, I had come up with a whole list of agents I wanted to contact once I had a book that I wanted them to shop. And so I was able to email all those agents with the subject line, offer made, looking for representation, which is, of course, more intriguing when you
Right.
basically tell the agent, like, hey, I've done a little bit of your job for you. And so I signed with an agent who actually I had previously met in person at a writing conference. So I also always recommend that if people have the ability to attend an in-person writing conference, it can be really helpful to make those in-person connections. And then now that agent, whenever I have an idea that I feel like might be appealing to a big publisher, she'll work on a proposal for it and she shops it around. And so that's what happened with PS I Hate You. So my agent, she did negotiate future contracts with small presses, and then she shopped around ideas. And P.S. I Hate You is not the first idea that she shopped to large publishers. I think I did at least two, maybe three other proposals, which is where you write like the first few chapters and then a synopsis. I definitely did at least three. And my agent's the kind of agent where she's like, I'll tell you about good news. So like if I don't hear anything, then I'm like, we're just gonna but the nice thing about I still self-publish and I still work with some small presses is that when I give my agent these ideas and these proposals to shop to publishers, then there's going to be a lot of silence, which I think can be very nerve-wracking for authors who are only going the traditional publishing route. But while my agent's doing that, I'm working on that other stuff that I'm working on my self-pub stuff, or I'm working on like a small press stuff that like I know where it's going to go. And so it's reassuring. So I'm what's called a hybrid author. And I find that life to be a very reassuring kind of life. Now, I completely understand there are other writers who they wouldn't want to deal with that silence at all, so they just want to go the self-pub route, or they don't want to deal with every aspect of publishing a book, so they just want to go the traditional route. And so it's just you got to get used to the pluses and minuses of each, but I find doing both of them, it's easier to ignore the minuses because then I just focus on whatever like if traditional publishing is stressing me out, I just focus on the self-pub. If self-pub is stressing me out, then I focus on the trad pub. And so yeah, that's kind of how I got to where I am now.
I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really inspiring to a lot of authors or upcoming writers and authors, myself included, that don't know which way to go. It's nice to know that you have options. You can do it all or do one or the other.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
sometimes they
so
like feed
great.
into one another and they benefit one another. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's a great way to go.
Yeah,
awesome.
that's really reassuring to hear too, because that does give you a way to channel your creativity while you're going through all of the sort of administrative stuff that you have to go through to, to get a book published. Um, so speaking of P.S. I Hate You, um, that's our book for tonight to discuss. And so we are just about, I'm going to draw out my words a few minutes. We are just about at our spoiler time. So, book club members who are watching, please be sure to put questions for Lauren in the chat. As always, we're going to be spoiler free until 7:15, but that leaves us lots of time to dig into this most intriguing story. So, first of all, Lauren, could you give us a summary for those who are tuning in to the spoiler free time, and then we'll flip the switch.
Sure. Yeah. So, yes, P.S. I Hate You. So basically, a synopsis of this book is it is a rom-com or also referred to as a rom-trom because there are kind of traumatic aspects of the book. It's funny, but also emotionally it might wreck a few people. But basically, Maddie has just lost her brother who she loved dearly. And scene one, so this is not a spoiler, you're going to start out at the funeral. And what she finds out is that her beloved brother left her a post-mortem task, which is that he would like his ashes spread in the states, the United States, that he didn't get to visit. But problem is, he left her a buddy for that task, which is Dom, his best friend, and also someone that Maddie hates because they had a falling out when she was younger. And she used to have a big crush on him, but now she's not a fan. And so Maddie doesn't want to go on the trips with Dom, but she does want to fulfill her brother's wishes. And bonus, at each stop that they go on, there is a letter that they open together that her brother Josh wrote for them. And so Maddie also wants to go on the trips to read those letters. And so P.S. I Hate You is a road trip romance, forced proximity, loathe to love situation. So it's definitely you get to visit some places that you probably haven't visited before on this trip because remember they're the states that he didn't get to go to, so they're less likely tourist locations. And yeah, it's a romance, so there's an HEA, even though there are some deeply emotional parts of the book.
Yeah.
Thanks so
Yeah.
much, Lauren. I'm not familiar with the Rom Trom title, but that is so true because I really, it was a romance, but it had so much to say about grief, about healing, about hanging on to the past. So it's almost hard to know where to start in the discussion. So I really appreciate your categorization of it as possibly a rom trom. It was so packed though emotionally and geographically. You mentioned that during your summary. It had me turn the pages, reading chunks at a time. I just couldn't get enough of it. So I wanted to ask you about the geography part of it, then we'll get to the emotional part of it. How did you determine the 8 destinations that Maddie and Dom would travel in the book, and how did you go about your research?
Yeah, so when I first came up with the idea and I decided that they would be traveling to the states he hadn't got to visit, because I could have gone a different way where like they were going to his favorite states. I really
Mhm.
liked the idea of writing about places that maybe are not as commonly written in books. Like I didn't want to, especially because you got so much more competition if you're writing about the the popular spots. But I thought it would be just really cool as an author to get to research places that either I've been to, but I don't think a lot of people have been to, or places I haven't been to, and I can find an interesting niche destination to have the characters go to. So when it came to deciding the locations, I think I started out with around 15 states when I was initially pitching to Berkeley and other places. But when I actually got into writing the book and really outlining it, I was questioning how many states do I actually need, because you don't want to overload them, and it was kind of a balance, but I also wanted it to be an amount that when they first find out they have to go on this many trips, that it is shocking, because it's like, oh, you only have to go to two. That's not enough for the story, and that's not going to be like I can handle 2 trips for
Exactly.
something I don't like. Um, so that was kind of how I got to the number. And then I definitely wanted them to be going to like different areas of the country. And so we have kind of like in the South, we have in the West, we have in the mountains, we have in the Midwest there, and then we have Delaware, which is the first place they go. And that's because I grew up in Delaware, and so I was making them go to Delaware. And everyone's like, "What's in Delaware?" And I'm like, "Beaches and beer." So that's what they're doing. So,
Love it. Love
so
it.
yeah, that was kind of uh I was thinking, I was like, what are states that people might overlook? And so I apologize if anyone lives in one of the states that I chose and they're like, no one would overlook North Dakota, how dare you? But I just, so once I kind of settled on states, I was like, okay, let's find something cool, interesting, something that would draw a character like Josh to go see it if he had been there. And so, and I also kind of wanted to do a balance between like beautiful scenery, but also kind of interesting like just odd places, because that was kind of Josh's funny personality, is like, yes, he wants to take pictures of these beautiful vistas, but also he likes these weird roadside attractions. So it gives you kind of a mixture of environments for Maddie and Dom to interact with. And so that's kind of how I settled on the different locations that they went to, and it was a really fun exercise as an author to figure out what works best. Also, just like emotionally, because the each stop kind of like also helps with the emotional beats of the story. Like writing a road trip and outlining it, it was a very fun experience. As I mean, like there are definitely multiple scenes in this book that like I was crying while writing them, because it's definitely an emotional experience, but also just like the story itself was just it was this is one of those books that was very um I'm not gonna say like it was easy for me, but it flowed from me in an easier way than other stories have, because it was
Uh,
very cinematic in my mind. I saw a lot of the scenes, and therefore it wasn't such a struggle to write it as some books are.
It was just fantastic. And That was probably we had so many advanced questions about the 8 destinations and if you'd been there and how did you pick them. So I did want to mention one of our book club members, Maria. She said because of the book, she wants to go to the Dismal's Canyon and she would like to know if you've been there. And also, we want to pose this question to book club members watching. Have you been there or have you been to any of the places mentioned in the book?
And just put
Yeah,
it in the
so
chat,
Yeah, just put it
in
in
the
the chat and
comments.
we'll pull them in a little bit.
cool. I did go to the Dismal Canyon, and I went for the book specifically. So
Oh,
I
Awesome.
I was looking, I had like decided on Alabama as one of the states, and so I was kind of researching interesting things to do there, and that came up. And I looked at the map and I was like, this is drivable. I can do this because I live in Georgia. I think it was about a 4 hour drive to Birmingham, and the Dismal's Canyon is about an hour north of there. So I do like to go on like solo writing retreats. And so I'll stay in like a tiny home or a bed and breakfast. And I found this cute, yoga themed bed and breakfast in Birmingham. So I just stayed there for a couple nights,
Great.
and I went on a night tour of the Dismal's Canyon. And it's definitely so the glow worms, I hope that I conveyed this properly in the book. It's slightly different than the pictures you've probably seen of like the New Zealand glow worms. Like those are like big and gooey and like almost like bioluminescent. The glowworms in the Alabama caves, it's kind of like starlight on the walls. It's very beautiful. It's very interesting. I love the tour. The tour guide was such a nice man, and it was a very cool experience. But it's definitely not going to be like like glowing blue goo is dripping from the walls or anything. It's more like yeah, it's more like the night sky is very close up to you, and it's a very cool natural occurrence, and I would highly recommend checking it out. Um, but yeah, so go on that one. I've been to Phoenix, Arizona, but I haven't been to the ghost town that they went to. But I, in March, am going to Romance in the Desert, which is a romance conference happening out there, and I plan on
Yay.
going to Vulture City, and I'm going to bring the book and get some pictures and
Oh,
everything.
fun.
So
I
oh,
yeah,
love
that's so
that.
awesome. I'm already picturing like, travel
I
spin-offs from this
know.
book.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, like now my goal is to go to every spot that because I haven't been to I would love to go to the Badlands too, like that, just the gorgeous scenery there. And I definitely want to go to Alaska. Like all of my family has gone to the Alaska trip, and I like had them describe it to me. And so but yeah, so I've
Oh,
gone to a few of the places, but not all of them. And that's when the internet and people who have traveled there are helpful for author life.
well, it was very vivid. We definitely
Yeah.
felt like we were there as well.
Thank
Well,
you.
we've got some active members. Irene said she's been on a glacier in Alaska.
Yay.
Maria is the one who had the question. She said she hasn't been any, but can't wait to check them out.
Nice.
Joanne has been to Alaska, Delaware, and the Badlands. Leah
Awesome.
says, I have been to the Badlands in South Dakota and did a hike along one of the trails with plenty of cold water and trail mix. Very fearful of rattlers as there were signs posted warning you. Ooh, that sounds scary.
Oh,
Yeah.
Um, Nanette says, when I was reading, I thought I should go to these places, and I have been to Delaware. Uh, let's see. Debbie has been to Alaska, Delaware, and Arizona and had never heard of some of the places and want to experience them. So you've definitely inspired a lot of there's a comments are still coming in. There's a little bit of a delay, but you inspired a lot of people to travel to some of these lesser known tourist spots. So thank you for that. Travel is important and you
yeah, I'm
described them
glad that
all so well.
I'm glad that how I described them made people want to go there. Because yeah, that's another thing. I feel like the places that I picked out, yeah, they're not going to be like overrun with people unless this becomes a bestseller. But, but it's nice to travel to those kind of lesser known locations because you don't have to like fight crowds to really enjoy it. I mean, when I went on the glowworm tour, there was maybe like 7 or 8 other people, so it was like a very manageable experience and I really got to enjoy it. So yeah, that's I'm glad that people want to go to
Cool.
places.
That's cool. Okay, my next question is another question that Brenda and I were getting texts and emails and comments about because this book was so perfect for us to read in January. And we didn't know any of this, like the connections, when we asked you to be our book club for January. And I say that because the PB&J. So, for those that don't know, new members, a nickname for Brenda and I that Patty Callahan Henry gave us was PB&J during one of her book launches. She said, because Brenda and I didn't know each other when we started this, and she said, "You guys go together like peanut butter and jelly." And our members ran with it. There was a poll: who was PB, who was J. Brenda's PB, I'm J. Anytime there's anything about peanut butter and jelly, or, one time they pardoned turkeys that were PB and J. Like we always get all the love about it, and we love it. Um, our reading prompt for January is to read a title with a book that starts with P, B, or J. And P.S. I Hate You fits that prompt, which we did not know again when we picked that prompt. And not only that, to take it a step further, we got a hell of a shout out in this book with those tattoos. I can't say I ever thought we'd have our nicknames tattooed on a butt, but I'm kind of honored by that. I'm good with it. So the question is, what inspired you to choose PB&J for the friend tattoos in the book?
Yeah, so well, and what a butt to be on, right?
I
Dumb.
know, right?
Um, so I so in that scene, definitely I was first thinking about like what's the tattoo that they're going to get because of the challenge and I wanted it to be like what would Maddie get? And so I kind of a friend of mine when her grandmother passed, she got her grandmother's signature love, how she wrote love on her. She got tattooed on her, and I was like, oh, I feel like that would be a good. I mean, the letters. They keep coming back to the letters, so like having Josh's signature that makes sense. And so I'm writing that, and it's a very like emotionally intense scene, and I mean, you've read the book. I have a hard time staying too long in a deep emotion. I gotta like get the humor back in. Like I really like to mix it up because I that's kind of like how I interact with grief as I'm like, ooh, it's getting a little too dark in here. Let's make a joke, even if it's inappropriate. I just need people to
Let's
laugh
bring on
right
some
now.
sarcasm.
It
And so
helps.
I was like,
Just kidding.
okay, how can we lighten the mood in this scene? And I was like, well, obviously it's got to be Maddie mocking Dom about something. And so I actually have a butt tattoo. And I think that butt tattoos are hilarious. And
Oh,
so
they are. That's
so
another question we're going to pose to the audience. If you have any tattoos, have you ever gotten
That
a
you would
funny
care to
tattoo, or do you know anyone with a
acknowledge.
peanut butter and jelly tattoo? We'll come back to that after this. But if you do have tattoos, let us know, and Brenda and I will reveal our secrets too.
So yeah, so I was thinking about what are and I was like, oh, what if it's like she figures out that Dom has a tattoo because Josh has a tattoo. And so then I was like kind of like what would be a good friend tattoo? And then I just kind of played off of what would a drunk Josh find funny and peanut butter would be hilarious to him. And so that's kind of how, and I was like, obviously the thing that goes with that is the jelly. And so they have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich if they were ever to press their butts together. And so and side note, if anyone wants to get a continuation of this joke, I wrote a bonus epilogue from Dom's point of view that anyone who signs up for my newsletter, you get it for free, and there's another reference to this joke in that bonus.
Yay.
So,
Sign me
especially
up.
those people who like dual point of view, you finally get to read from Dom's perspective, and you get a an update on the characters and everything. So, yeah, that's kind of
Okay.
how it came about. It was like, what would Josh find funny? And peanut butter. That's what he
Okay. So they can sign up for your newsletter on your website, right?
Yes, yeah, front page,
And
just scroll down, there's a sign up right
okay,
there.
perfect. That's amazing. And for the tattoo question, yes, I don't have any butt tattoos or I don't have any funny tattoos, but I do have 6 tattoos. So,
No.
yes. Brenda,
I have
PB.
0. I have 0. I know everyone is astonished about that.
Are we really surprised? Well, I don't know. People might not have thought I had 6. They probably thought I had like 2, but no. 6
That should have
itching
been a
for
trivia
7.
question. How many tattoos?
Um,
Darn. I missed my
everyone's
opportunity on
excited
that,
about the
Lauren.
newsletter. Oh, we've got a couple of tattoos. Phyllis has paw prints on her shoulder when she worked at an animal rescue. Love that. Leslie has a rose with a strand of pearls on her side and a bird of purple ribbon on her shoulder.
Oh.
And everyone else is just freaking out about the newsletter and the extra chapter. So there's lots of hearts. Irene says our PB and J need Irene says our
No,
PB and
before
J
you even.
need the test.
Well, I
Oh
came up with one
Lordy.
for you. There you go. Perfect.
I know that is just hilarious. Michelle says I correctly guessed Lisa and yes, and Brenda no, but no idea Lisa had so many. Surprise, guys. I'll tell you guys if you stick around for our after show, I will share my tattoo story I shared with Brenda last night.
Okay.
Um,
Extra
so
content in
I
the
know, right? Back to this amazing book. Um, the range of emotions for the readers was just unbelievable. We felt everything in this novel. We laughed, we cried, we were angry at her mom. Like I literally cussed her out. Like I was like yelling at one point. Um, and then we wanted to just whisper in Maddie's ear, like, know your worth. You're worthy, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but she was very relatable. There were so many relatable things in this book. So, how did you approach writing the funny wit versus the emotional? But you did it so seamlessly, and it wasn't like a jerk. Like sometimes you can feel it if writers, they're writing something emotional, and you can feel that, oh, I need to say something
field the
funny, and
pivot.
it's like a yeah, like a quick pivot or like a jerk. But yours was just so seamless and it was written so beautifully. So how did you approach those differences? And was it hard for you?
Well, thank you. First off, I'm glad that it came off as seamless. I think probably what helped so I forget where I heard this idea, but basically apparently when people are making shows like where they're making a pilot for a new show, oftentimes whatever happens in the pilot of an episode, whether it be humor or violence or like sexuality or something, they'll dial it up a couple of notches to basically prepare you for what could be seen in the season, because if like there's no
Oh,
violence in episode one, but there's like a massacre later on, it's jarring that way. And so I kind of kept that in mind, and I've been keeping that in mind when writing the first chapters and even like the first few paragraphs and scenes of my book is I want to prepare the readers for the tone and whatnot that they would find in the book. So the first scene, the setting itself is sad and emotionally hard, but the
yes.
first line is a joke about like does this make me a bad person that I'm doing work in the closet of my brother's funeral? So it's kind of, I think that probably helped with the seamless nature is that right off the bat I established that there will be jokes said in emotionally tough situations, and like that's how Maddie is. And then I tried to make it clear that one, like the moment that Maddie starts to feel sad, it slips into anger instead. She like tries to bypass sad into mad, and when Maddie is mad, that's also kind of why I named her Maddie. I was like, Maddie's mad. Just a reminder. Um, and that when Maddie's mad, then she gets snarky and sarcastic. So it's kind of like Maddie's grief automatically goes into morbid jokes and scathing humor. So it all connects together. So it doesn't seem as jarring when it's an emotionally tough scene and a joke happens, because it's been established that that's how Maddie interacts with her grief. And so, yeah, I do think that like if Maddie had been a different personality, like if Maddie had been someone who got sad and cried, and then all of a sudden she's starting to make jokes, that would have been very abrupt and odd to have in the book. So it really helped to kind of establish her character like that in the beginning, and then just remain consistent with her. And it's also it's interesting. I do know that I've gotten, well, I haven't like gotten pushback. No one's contacting me directly, but I do know that there are some readers that find Maddie very hard to deal with in the beginning of the book because they don't know her backstory as much. And so they can find her like morbid sarcasm and everything to be like immature or abrasive. And I
Huh.
get that. I totally understand if that's, and I never think that people should like continue reading a book that they're not vibing with. But I think that a lot of people, if they get past a certain point, they kind of start to understand Maddie, and they're like, oh yeah, Maddie just lost like the most important person in her life. She's not really going to be pleasant to be around. I don't think a
Yeah.
lot of us would be. And actually as an author, I find it very in not I like writing angry, snarky characters. I love that. Like I tried to make it seem realistic. Maddie using Dom as a punching bag, like a verbal punching bag, because it was really enjoyable to write her snark and everything. It's like, yeah, I don't want to
Yeah.
make people sad, but I I do want to like, explore all the different facets of emotion and grief. And also I'm like, I think that I would be very similar. Like again, I react
Mhm.
to emotion, like very deep emotion with let's do a joke. And so like this is so that's
Well,
kind of I think what helped it seem seamless was Maddie's personality. But yeah, I'm really glad that it came off that way for you all.
It really did. And she was really relatable. Like I was telling Brenda last night, we were talking about it, and I was like, I can relate to her so much. And some of the things where I wanted to like whisper those things, like, know your worth. It's because I would be that way in that situation too. And I'm like, I need to say that to myself too, not just to Maddie. Like, there's so many things that, people connected with. There's just so many. One of our book club members was a wreck. She loved the book, but it was a wreck for her. She cried. She said she cried for 4 days reading the book, but she loved the wit. She loved the story. It was just she could connect to the grief and the loss of it. So I think it connected with a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And for those reasons, some people want to read it again and see what they connect with the second and third time around. So I
You
suggest
know,
you guys do.
that's an interesting point, Lisa, because I kind of want to read it again to go hone in on the destinations too, like again to figure them out differently now that I know everything. But since we were on the range of emotions issue, Lisa made me ask this question because it's not one I normally ask. But there was some spice in this book.
Woo!
Um, and so my question is like, how do you determine what you're going to include in a scene, and how do you balance writing like a compelling connection between your characters while also writing those spicy scenes that move their relationship forward?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm happy to talk about spice in my book. So
We've
um
got some comments about spice too.
Yeah, keep
yeah,
on
so
coming.
I don't know that I have ever written a book without a little bit of spice, and that is largely because I when I'm writing my books, I want to have the characters like I as the reader want to see the characters in their most vulnerable spaces with each other. And I think being physically intimate with someone is a very vulnerable emotional time, and especially with Maddie and Dom when they're falling out was because of an event that happened post their first intimate experience. It
Right.
would seem odd to me to like go the entire book and they never have another intimate experience. Like I'm a big fan of the happily ever after versus the happy for now. Like when people get to the end of my book, I want them to think that the characters are going to be together for the rest of their life. And I'm kind of like, if you haven't seen them in the bedroom together, do you know for sure? And so, but also
But
there's there it is a like an engaging challenge as an author to write a good intimate scene. And I think it was Sarah McLean, who she's a fantastic historical romance author, who said that a good sex scene should not be something that you can pick up from one book and then place into another book and then it works seamlessly. Like how the characters have intimate times with each other should be in the same way that like when they have dinner together, Maddie and Dom, when they go to a diner, like that's the only way that Maddie and Dom would eat a meal together. So when Maddie and Dom sleep together, like I went in that with how would Maddie and Dom have sex together? And it would be there's snark, there's some insecurity from Maddie, there's pausing to talk about how to do it without setting off an asthma attack, and there's going to be some domination from Dom even as he's like figuring out how to support Maddie during it. And so I know that some people like don't prefer to have spice in their books and like everyone read what makes them feel comfortable. But when you're opening up a Lauren Connolly book, there is going to be spice in it, and it's spice that I worked very hard on to make authentic to the characters and to contribute to the storyline. Like I think that after the intimate scenes with Maddie and Dom, there is I mean you can I think you can still kind of get the gist of the story if you decide to skip over them, but I do think that it adds extra depth to Maddie and Dom's emotional relationship if you read them. And that's why I included them because I want you to get as deep into the relationship as you can, as I can get you with however many pages my publisher will let me publish. So
well, and
that's
it goes back to like what Lisa was saying about Maddie and her self-worth. You can see in those scenes, even then, she doesn't appreciate her own worth. And it comes out in those scenes too. So I mean
Yeah.
they
Yeah, like at
definitely
first there's a part like a version of being intimate that she doesn't want to do because she's anxious about what will happen afterwards. And like the moment
right.
after it's over, she starts doubting again. And so yeah, it's kind of to me, I thought that to me, like writing the book, it felt natural to have those scenes there. And there have been multiple times when like I've written a rough draft of a book, and as I'm going through, I'll say, oh, I don't actually know if that sex scene needs to happen or needs to be there. And so if I don't feel like it helps with the story, I take it out. So I don't think that the scenes that like to me as an author, again, everyone takes what they want from a book, but whenever there is an intimate scene in a book, I felt like it needed to be there, and I felt like it added to the story in a way that was enjoyable to me. And
Right.
it can add to the story in the way that like a good banter session adds to the story. Like sometimes I'm just like, I feel like this is a good, enjoyable little moment, intimate moment between the characters. And so yeah, so that's kind of like where the spice comes from and how I hope it serves the story.
Well, and the texts were like that too. Like there was advancement and such in the texting that they did with each other. So I can totally see that. Yeah.
I love
Well,
the little text, the little epistolary things. Yeah.
It was all great. The dialogue, the texting, the spice. One of our members, I think it was Maria, I don't want to misquote, it went by so fast. She said it was very spicy, but after chapter 27 and 28, she said a cold shower was needed.
You
I
know?
was like, I get you. I get it. I was like, woo, Lauren, girl. It was great. It was very well written. I'm gonna stop making Brenda blush and move on to a different question.
God. Ah.
We have an advanced question from Instagram from Ashley, and she wants to know, would you consider writing a paranormal romance for Josh?
Oh, I would love to, except that uh technically anything related to PS I Hate You would have to be approved by Berkeley. And I don't
Ah.
think Berkeley has ever
Mm.
done like write a paranormal for one of your characters who has passed away. Never say never. I mean, I'm a mood reader, I'm a mood writer. Like a paranormal for Josh might pop into my head. But
I
yes.
love that question though,
I
because
know,
I
I
had
love
that I
that
never would
too.
have thought of that question myself, but I'm like, yeah, that would be really interesting.
That's so funny. Brenda, do
So
you
we
wanna?
I
Oh,
had a oh Lisa, I'm sorry, were you done?
oh yeah, I was gonna ask if you wanted to go on with the next one.
Okay. Um, we had another advanced question from Mindy, and that is, well, she has a comment first. I really thought this book was unique in its plot from most of the ones I read. Really made me think about the relationship with my own brother. Were your characters based on real people in your life at all?
So I would say not directly by any degree, because I don't want anyone to read my book and be like, you wrote about me. Like, no, I didn't. But I do like pull details from my life, people in my life, random people that like tell me stories or whatever, because people find out that you're an author and then they start saying like, oh, I've got a great idea. I don't take other people's ideas, but then they tell me about their like family drama and I'm like, I could use that. So uh I mean, both of my brothers actually did help a little bit in this book. So Maddie's job, the logistics analysis thing, that is a job that my older brother had at one point. And so because I wanted Maddie and Dom to have very real world jobs in the same way that like I wanted them to go to like travel to niche places. I was like, I just want them to feel real, as real as possible in this fictional book. And so, and also the reason that I gave Maddie a job that my brother had is I remember multiple vacations that we were on that he actually did have to work on part of the vacations because no one else at the company knew how to do his job. And now he doesn't like have the mindset of like, I need to do this so the company doesn't fire me. But I realized I was like, oh, that job would work well for someone with that mindset. And so that's why I decided to give Maddie my brother's job. And then um my younger brother, he is like big adventure guy. Like he has a college degree in adventure education. It's a real thing.
Ooh.
Last weekend he was ice
Wow.
climbing. So when they were going on the the Idaho trip, I texted him and I was like, "What are some good hikes in Idaho?" And he just like lists off a whole bunch. And I was like, "What are good trips that someone with asthma could go on?" And that's another thing. He actually, when he had asthma in his childhood, he eventually grew out of it because some people do. Um, but that was kind of like lingering in the back of my mind was he has always loved going on these huge adventures. So like what if he hadn't grown out of his asthma? Is there a way for people who suffer from chronic asthma to still go on adventures? And so I did a lot of research into that. And so that's kind of where Maddie's prep for the hikes came from, is because I had that kind of thought in the back of my head. Um,
I'm
so
so
yeah,
glad you
it's kind
addressed
of like,
that
yeah,
because
like
that
taking
was a
classes
couple
and
comments.
everything. And for anyone who read Maddie's mom and thought that's unrealistic, I'm just gonna tell you, not my mom, my mom's amazing. But
Yeah,
there are people that I know of in the world who are worse than that. She is a diet version of some real world people. So yeah, you take I take chunks, but I don't like say, oh, this person is based off of my aunt or anything like that.
Yeah.
So
That
yeah.
is so funny, Lauren, because you pretty much basically, you know, foreseeing two of the questions we were about to wind up with, which was someone was curious about the asthma question. Rebecca had asked that in advance. And I was fascinated by Maddie's mother, fascinated, not in a good way, like
Oh,
furious with Maddie's mother and how cruel she was. But it did totally explain her reactions, Maddie's reactions to people and to grief and the deflection and all of that. I mean, that's the thing. That's the explanation.
Yeah, I mean when someone who is like supposed to be your first experience of love and affection doesn't show up for you, then the rest of your life you're going to be doubting. And so that's kind of like what I was trying to get across with like I
Mm-hmm.
know like to us readers Dom seems amazing and it's like just let him love you. But
right.
like Maddie has been set up to doubt it all, and Dom messed up. That Dom, it's not just like a miscommunication thing. Dom made a
Right.
choice that basically he chose not Maddie, and so like he in that time proved her misconception of her lovability. But so yeah, but when it comes from a parent that's just setting a an uneven base to build your emotional resilience on. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I can't believe how quickly this hour is going by, and we have
No, we have more
Sorry, I'm a
questions.
talker sometimes when it comes to talking about
No,
books.
no,
we
this is
love it.
fabulous. We got into some deep dives on a couple of the issues that were really critical to this book. So I'm really excited about that and to learn more about it. So one quick question, because I know we need to be wrapping up, but just a quick question about your writing process before we move forward. Do you approach your paranormal um works differently from your romance?
I when it comes to the like my writing habits, I'm pretty structured with my writing. So now I am a full-time author. So haha, everyone in college who said that you couldn't be a full-time novelist. Now I am.
You told them.
Um, but so when it comes to my writing time, I'm always like an afternoon writer, and I like how I sit down and write my books doesn't really change, but there are things that I consider when it comes to paranormal. So like when you are writing a magical book, you have an extra element, which is the magic. And so that is an extra thing during my plotting process because I'm a big plotter too. I like to write out kind of almost like a little narrative to myself. I basically write out if I'm telling the plot of the story to someone else, so I'm telling the plot of the story to me, and that's like my initial outline of the book. Um, but I do when I'm trying to get to know characters, I kind of figure out things like what is the lie that they tell themselves? Why do they feel that? What do they think they want? What do they actually want? And so when you're adding magic to that, magic is kind of something that I do like to apply some rules to, like even if they're loose. And so I tend to ask myself four questions related to magic, and they are what can the magic do? What can't the magic do? What does it cost to use the magic? And how does
Ooh,
it feel, look, taste, smell when there's magic around? And so that just helps me
I
ground
love it.
the magic in the story, and then it's almost like you can make the magic into a character if you want. And so it helps me like consistently use the magic throughout the book. And so that's something, again, if anyone's interested in, like, if you're like, oh, I want to dip a toe into the world of magic, that would be my like casual magic series. That's the Fire Magic and Ice Cream. That's like very light magic, and whenever the magic pops up, it's just kind of like a quirky thing that
Yeah,
it's just a dash. You don't have to like have a
a
whole
dash.
app. So
Love that. I
so
love
yeah,
that.
that's something that I think about when I'm plotting a paranormal or magical book.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, before we leave, and I kind of did these out of order, but before we leave the P.S. I Hate You book to talk about like your future stuff, I was intrigued by your Maddie's travel playlist at the back of the book, which I hope everybody saw. Um,
Yeah.
and it was titled Hate, Love Your Dead Brother's Best Friend Vibes, which was totally in keeping with with the tone of the book. So did you create the playlist or did it, you said you have a cinematic view sometimes of your writing and it just flows. Did it just come out that way or how did you come up with the playlist?
Yeah, so I live in kind of a rural area of Georgia, which means that if I want to write at a coffee shop, which is my preferred place to write, I have to drive a little bit of a ways to get to a decent coffee shop. And so I often listen to music on the drive to like get me in the headspace. And so that's kind of like when I'm trying to play the scenes out in my mind. So I'm like prepping myself. So when I sit down, I'm ready to start typing. And when I'm listening, I'll listen to like different kind of playlists that other people have made up. And when a song stands out to me as like feeling like it fits with maybe one of the scenes I have, um, then I'll add it to a playlist. I'll add it to the book's playlist. And then when I was going on like a solo writing retreat where like I'm alone in a tiny home, I'll play back those songs that fit with the book, and they'll get me kind of in the writing mood. And so most I would say like 65 to 70% of the songs on the playlist are ones that helped inspired it. And then when I realized I thought it would be like a cool little extra thing at the back of the book, I kind of figured out a few extra songs that I felt meshed with and I tried to put them in the order that coincides with the feeling of the book. And so you kind of go from betrayal into like maybe something could happen into love, and then like the song that I always came back to again and again, as like again because the book, the romance and the grief are kind of even for
Yeah,
me in this book,
yeah,
is Ghost by Justin Bieber. That one just kind of really, every time that I listen to that, I just put me in the mind of like Maddie thinking about Josh, and how
Yeah.
it's like, so that if people only listen to one song off of the playlist, or like you finish the book, if you then put that song on, I think like if you wanted to cry again, that would be a good way to
like we didn't
like,
enough already.
yeah, if you were like, I haven't cried enough, let's listen to
Let's listen to
Ghost by
that one.
Justin. And I wouldn't,
That'll
you
do.
wouldn't think like Justin Bieber, that's the song that's going to make me cry. But no, it just like that one hit. And
It
so,
fits.
yeah, so
It
there,
really
Oh,
does.
that's really Yeah, that's a really interesting story. So if you haven't seen that playlist and you read the book, go back and take a look at it. I feel like I want to
Yeah.
listen to the playlist and go back to the destinations again, for a second round.
Yeah.
We
So,
we're up against I know we don't want to let you go, but we do. If you have just a
I
few
know
more minutes,
it's already 8
we've
o'clock.
held you hostage. But we want to know for those, I'm gonna ask three quick things all at once. Um, what can you tell us of any upcoming dates where our members can see you and what your next project is?
Sure. Yeah, so I actually um on my Instagram, one of the first pinned posts does have a list of all my events. I think there's one that got rescheduled because of weather, so I'll be updating that graphic, but you can always go there and see a list. And so again, I live in Georgia, so most of my events are kind of in the Georgia, South Carolina area, but I'll be at Love Y'all Book Fest in Atlanta. I
I
will
will see
be
you there.
yeah. I'll be at that Romance in the Desert in March. And then I'll also be at a Polycon in Washington, D.C. in April.
Very
And I'll be at
cool.
Romance Con in Wisconsin. I'm also, but that's in September. But yeah, and then I'm popping into a few small bookstores and if you want to like if you're kind of I don't know in the South, I mean like I'm willing to travel, but if you want to like let any bookstores know about me, go for it. And then what you can expect next from me, I have a few uh magical paranormal books that I'll be self-publishing this June. So if you just like keep an eye on my
Yay.
socials, you'll see those popping up. Because the thing is, when you have a contract with a traditional publisher, at least the one that I signed, it had a non-compete window. And so there's going to be like just a
Oh.
small sliver of time in June where I can like put out my stuff. So I'm going to it's going to be like the week of Lauren where I put out multiple self-published books. It's going to flood them out. And then as long as they stay on the original schedule they quoted me, I should have another book coming out from Berkeley this upcoming December. And the title of
Nice.
that is Love in Plain Sight, and it is about a flight student and a flight instructor. And so
Ooh.
that is another kind of rom-com. It does get deep, but I wouldn't say it probably is not as much of a tear-jerker as P.S. I Hate You is. But if you like the idea of like, learning a little bit more about aviation, I dig into that and everything. So
But yeah, that sounds really intriguing.
yeah, and I'm hoping to do a cover reveal of that soon. They've been sending me the mock-ups, but I don't have a final yet, but they're looking cute, so I'm excited.
Well, let us know. We'll be more
Yeah,
than
let us
happy to
know.
share and
Yeah,
promote
that'd
for
be awesome.
sure. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I do want to say I'm such a fan of you as a person, and I love your Instagram page. I was a fan of you before I knew you were an author, and now I'm like president of your fan club over here. Um, I want you guys to follow Lauren on Instagram. Her Instagram is Lauren Connolly Romance because she's so just amazing. It's so funny. You're funny. You have great posts, but follow along so you can keep up with her and all of her shenanigans, as I like to say. But thank you so much for taking time to talk with us tonight.
Yes,
We
thank
loved
you
this
so
book
much,
so much.
Lauren.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for choosing P.S. I Hate You, and thank you for showing the book so much love. It means so much, and yeah, I love chatting with book clubs about it because it's really nice to know what readers connected with because I wrote it like over a year ago and I'm like, oh, I think it was good. And so it's nice to hear that people like it and connected with it and both enjoyed the deep emotions and the humor. And so that means the world to me.
Well, there are a lot of comments and questions in the chat under this discussion. If you'd like to take a look, you can see all of the love that's there.
Nice.
Yes, thank you so much for being here tonight, Lauren. And I hope to catch you on your tour soon. And we just are delighted to have you tonight. Thank you so much. We love PS. I Hate You.
Yay.
Thank you. Yes.
Wait, wait. The promo. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, that was so much fun.
I know. I could have had part 2, 3, 4, 5.
I
I feel like
know
we could have talked to her forever.
we could have. They were just, I don't know, just so it was so, and we didn't even get into, I was just thinking, we didn't even get into the end where we find
I
out more
know.
about Josh in the end of his life.
And I
And
know there was so
oh,
much to
it
talk
we
about.
need a part two because that one is that's what got me in the end
Yeah.
was Rosalind or Rosaline anyway, and her dedication to Josh then, and that, oh boy, that got me. But anyway, I'm so glad I
Oh,
read this
me,
book.
me too. Me too. And um, I have been lucky to, like I said, I was telling the truth. I've met Lauren several times. There's a little group of Atlanta, like Bookstagram people, Bookstagram girls that we've done book tours together. And Lauren was a part of that. She's so supportive of other writers and other authors that I think I knew her for a good 6 months before I even knew that she was an author herself. And
I wonder
when I
what that
figured that
connection
out,
was.
yeah, I was like, and then I started going and looking, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's like, this is insane. And then when P.S. I Hate You was selected for Book of the Month, and I went, yay, Lauren. Like, I was just so excited for her, and she's so talented. It's nice to see someone who's put in the work, start to get the recognition that she
Right,
deserves.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I did wonder how that connection was made, but I was very surprised when I went to her website and saw the number of books she has done and
Yeah.
the methods. She looks very young for an author of 20, how many? 25?
I think it's 26, including P.S. I Hate You. I know. And she
Hats
pumps them
off to
out
her.
too. She pumps them
I
out.
bet.
She has a really strong process. I had a good conversation with her about that once, and I was really impressed that she knows her timeline, and she can pump out a couple of books in a year, and I'm like, I have no idea how you do that.
I know, me neither. But
So
speaking of
I
timelines,
Oop.
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I did make a promise to share my tattoo story, and I don't want to
Oh,
renege
how
on
could I
that
have
promise.
forgotten that?
So I will make it quick. I always knew that I wanted a tattoo my entire life. Like I was 10 and I wanted tattoo, like I wanted tattoos. I just did. And when I was 16, all my other friends wanted cars and this and that. And instead of that, I made a plan for my life, my whole life at the age of 16, for how many tattoos I was going to get and when I was going to get them. And I begged my parents to let me get a tattoo when I was 16. It took a lot. And finally, both my parents, they agreed. They knew I wasn't going to grow anymore. They knew they didn't want to take the chance of me being a dumb teenager and trying to do it on my own somewhere that may not be safe to take. So they took me to a very reputable tattoo place. So I got my first tattoo when I was 16, my second when I was 18, my third when I was 21, my fourth when I was 25, my fifth when I was 30, and my sixth when I was 40. And I am slated, if I continue my plan that I created for myself, because seven has been my favorite number, I'm slated to get my final tattoo when I'm 50. However, Lisa is I'm having a little issue here because I want one now. And I'm not
Ah,
50. I have some years before I'm 50.
yep.
And I kind of maybe I might want more than seven. I don't know. I don't want to disappoint 16-year-old Lisa, but I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to stick to that plan. But
Well, tune
there it
in.
is.
Tune in
There
next
it
time
is.
to
I
find out.
know. The Tattoo Chronicles. So here we are.
I can't believe I almost forgot that because, excuse me, oh, because I thought maybe you were going to explain where the tattoos were, but we'll leave it at that.
We'll leave
So,
it at
changing
that.
the subject.
There's none on
Um,
my butt. I can say that.
okay. Um, so Lisa and everybody who's stuck with us through this craziness at the
Oh,
end that we
Lord.
had. We have a lot coming up too. We want to mention and invite book club members to join us for our quarterly happy hour with Ron Block on February 6th at 7:30 p.m. right here on the book club page, just like we are now. We also have a Saturday giveaway on February 8th with Patricia Brandon, who is an indie author. And so I thought the discussion with Lauren was really interesting since we're going to be having this author as our Saturday giveaway next month. She is author of several books, the latest of which is Rise of the Pale Moon, whose cover I love. And so she'll be doing our Saturday giveaway on February 8th. Our next book discussion will be, I got to multitask, will be,
It's on February 24th.
I went the wrong way.
That's okay.
Sorry. Um, Monday, February 24th with The Vanishing of Josephine Reynolds.
Yay. I'm excited for that. I have that book right here too for my little
Yes.
Vanna.
Yeah, you're a good Vanna, Lisa. And then the one you never can tell the order on my thing, but anyway, we also have March 24th. Very excited about this. People of
Yay.
Means with Nancy Johnson. So
Super
excited for
excited.
this book. Please
Yeah.
join us for that discussion. And then I think that I am turning it over to you. What do you have anything else, Lisa?
Yeah. Can you stop sharing your screen?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Yay,
You
I
don't
can
want to see
see you
that the whole
now.
time.
I wanted to see PB. We also want to bring up our reading challenge. You have a few days left in January to complete the prompt, which was read a book that begins with a P, B, or J, which mostly everyone completed when you read this masterpiece, but you can still participate. I also read Beach Town by Mary Kay Andrews for the prompt, and it was really good.
Because I'm reading that right now. So it's
Yeah,
technically meets the prompt too, but the one I
that
read at
will
the
count.
first of the month was the book club hotel. But so I'll have
Oh,
three,
yeah.
which is unusual for this month to meet the
Right.
prompt.
I know. It was pretty cool. We love seeing everyone's entries. So keep those coming, but we are getting close to February, and the February prompt is to read a romance book by a BIPOC author. And that is going to be a super fun challenge. There's several books. There's tons. I will mention a few authors because we have had some questions. Kennedy Ryan is good, Jasmine Guillory, Sonali Dev, um, Regina Black is amazing, and she's not as well known, and I don't know why. One of her books coming up this year is one of my most anticipated for 2025. I wish it was out now so I could read it next month. Um,
And
there's a
just for
lot of
those who,
great. Vanessa Riley.
oh yeah, yeah. Just for
Yeah,
those who don't know though, BIPOC is, and I hope I get this right, Black, Indigenous, and people of color.
correct.
So any romance book by someone in that category.
Yeah,
Lots of
it'll
good
be
ones to look
fun.
forward to.
Yeah, lots of good ones. Tia Williams, too. We've had her on. She's also another
Oh yeah. If you
great
haven't, if
author that
anybody has
has
not
books.
read A Love Song for Ricky Wilde, that could be a
The
good choice
perfect
too.
fit. Yeah. She also has one 7 days in June. That would be a great pick for that. Um, I think I might read a Kennedy Ryan book called Real. I'm not sure. I'm
Hmm.
stuck between two. I might read them both, but we will post what we're reading for
Yes, and
February later.
we're getting close, so the two of us are gonna have to figure that out because I'm kind of torn too. So we'll see. We need to decide in the next couple of days.
But thank you guys for hanging out with us in the after show. We know we kept you a little late tonight, and it was such a
Yes.
great conversation with Lauren. She's fantastic. So, oh, I love you guys. Some of the comments are so funny. Uh, Mitzi, thank you for saying that. She said she's shocked that I'm 40. I'm actually older than 40, but we're not going to go there. Thank you.
I'll tell
And
you later.
Edie says I can revise my plan. I know. Now I'm starting to love the number 11. I don't know. Maybe I'll do a poll. Do I want to go 11 tattoos? I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
I
they
don't
would
know if
need
I'm
more disclosure if they're going to make an informed decision. So
right.
just be
I need
wary.
to figure it out. And if where would I go? So thank you guys for all of your support. And I might, I'll keep you guys informed of my personal tattoo chronicles. I might
Hey,
actually make Brenda come with me when I get one. You don't have to get one. You're just gonna come with me.
I don't want to be that close to needles.
Really? Oh, nothing. I love the sound of a tattoo gun. That buzzing.
Really?
I don't know. Yeah. It's the sound of the buzzing for it doesn't bother me one bit.
Do you like the dentist?
No, I hate the dentist. Oh my God, I'm scared of the
To me,
dentist.
that is a
That
very
sound
similar
is different.
situation.
That drill is a totally different sound. I can't handle that. But a tattoo gun sound, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I've always known my whole life I was one of those weirdos. Well, no, good weirdo. Okay, that being said,
Okay. Yeah,
thank
that
you
being said, thank you guys for
guys.
hanging in with us. We did run a little long today, but Lauren has so much great content. We didn't even get through nearly all the questions. So I'm definitely going to take another look through the book and look at that playlist too. So hope
Yeah,
everyone enjoyed it tonight. Join us next month and for the happy hour and happy reading. And Lisa?
PB and J out.